What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hutch Coming in Clutch. I'm your host, Hutchison Brown, and today we've got a fantastic show. I am talking about today rookie draft sleepers. Some people are already in their rookie draft. Some people have completed their rookie drafts. Some people have rookie drafts coming up. So I'm going to continue talking about rookie drafts. Obviously, last week, if you missed it, I talked about my top 24 Superflex rookie rankings post NFL draft. I went break down every single player in my top 24. If you want to go check that out, please go back to last week, check it out, and then come back here, listen to this one. This one's going to be all about sleepers, all players that I didn't talk about last week, and they're generally going the third, fourth, or fifth round of rookie drafts. We're going to have some guys that are going early third round and some guys that are were undrafted free agents that I think could be fantasy impactful. We also got some breaking news to talk about. So before I get in the show today, I appreciate it if you're following me on Twitter. I'm at HutchisonB_FF or there. Follow me on Blue Sky as well. Make sure you check out the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. Make sure you subscribe, follow, click the plus, whatever you do. Just be notified where every single episode comes out. Leave a review if you can as well. I'd greatly appreciate that. And also, make sure you follow the podcast, Hutch Coming in Clutch, on Instagram and TikTok to see little clips, highlights, and things of that nature for the show. Now, without further ado, breaking news time. After DK Metcalf was sent to the Pittsburgh Steelers, a lot of people got a lot of people were having some fun with some George Pickens trade rumors, or a lot of those being floated after DK Metcalf got sent to the Steelers. And all of a sudden, now we have it. Some people thought we could see it during the NFL draft or before the NFL draft, but no, after the NFL draft, George Pickens is being sent to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2026 third round pick and a 2027 late round selection. So Dallas got their wide receiver 2. Steelers sent away their wide receiver 1, or their former wide receiver 1. Now they have DK Metcalf. So we're going to focus on the Steelers first. How does this impact the Pittsburgh Steelers offense? I mean, obviously, this cements DK Metcalf as the clear-cut wide receiver 1 on the team. How fantasy relevant will that be? That depends on the quarterback situation. That's something that still needs to unfold. So I can't really make any concrete takes there. However, if we get a quarterback that we think is competent enough to make 2 relevant fantasy football options, we have other players here on the Steelers offense that could make big fantasy impacts. I'm talking about Pat Freiermuth, the tight end. I mean, he's a really solid, decent athlete. He can make plays after the catch. He's a really reliable target. If you give this guy a huge target share, it kind of reminds me of when Zach Ertz was the number 1 target on Philadelphia. He's got a boatload of targets, but every time he caught the ball, he just fell over. That kind of reminds me of what Pat Freiermuth could be in this Steelers offense. We could see a 75, 80 plus reception kind of season for Freiermuth, and maybe the yardage isn't crazy. Maybe the touchdowns aren't insane, but that reception count in PPR and half PPR formats drives him to a top 8 fantasy season at the tight end position. So keep an eye on Pat Freiermuth as a sleeper. He's dirt cheap in fantasy right now. And the other guy I want to talk about, he's basically been forgotten about, is Roman Wilson. He was picked in the third round by the Pittsburgh Steelers in this last year's draft. And he didn't have a great rookie season. I mean, he didn't really do anything. He barely played on the football field at all. Mike Tomlin made it very clear during the season that, when it's a moving train, it's just hard to get on. And Roman Wilson, with all the injuries he suffered, with all the things he went through in the offseason and during the season, he really just wasn't able to get it going as a rookie. And the Steelers probably got to a point midseason where they're like, okay, you've gone through a lot. Let's just rest you, try to develop you this year, and then maybe we'll shoot for 2026 to get you some real snaps on the football field. And looking at now what he could do in 2026, you have a situation where it's a very thin depth chart. He could easily stack up. And after this trade, we've already heard reports of a lot of people at the Steelers front office, a lot of people in the Steelers coaching staff room saying that Roman Wilson looks like a different player in camps this year. He looks motivated. He looks different. He looks like he's ready to make an impact for the Steelers offense. I'm excited to see what happens with Roman Wilson in 2024 as well as Pat Freiermuth. So keep an eye on both those guys as sleepers. Either of them could be the number 2 option on this team and could be very fantasy relevant. Now, looking towards the Dallas Cowboys and their side of this trade, I'm really worried for this one. The Steelers have a great track record when it comes to sending away wide receivers. I know that's a weird trend to follow. I don't really like to follow those weird trends, those really theoretical kind of trends, but this one is just real. The Steelers have basically a perfect hit rate when it comes to trading away wide receivers. In the early 2000s and the 90s, there are a few examples, but just to name some lately, for most fantasy listeners here, just to freshen your mind a little bit, Antonio Brown mental issues after that concussion. He was basically unmanageable, uncontrollable. Steelers quickly saw that, sent him away, and look what happened in Brown's career since then. Not very great and a lot of messiness. You look at Juju Smith-Schuster. His was mostly injuries with that knee issue, but they saw it, they sent him away, and he did not have a great rest of his NFL career compared to what he was doing in Pittsburgh. Then you have Chase Claypool, very overconfident, celebrated at inappropriate times on the offense, and got himself booted out. And Steelers got a second round pick in returns from Chicago. And look how that ended up. Chase Claypool didn't really do much for the rest of his NFL career. And then you have Deontay Johnson. He was sent away to the Carolina Panthers for a day 2 pick, and that didn't really work well for Carolina. It was kind of okay for a few weeks, and then Deontay just went crazy. He was a pure diva, and it really didn't work out on the Carolina Panthers offense. Steelers are able to use these emotional, potentially unstable wide receivers mentally, get production out of them, and then when they see the cliff coming, they send them away. George Pickens, I don't want to label him. I don't want to talk down on George Pickens. Every opportunity he gets, he's getting in a fight. He's pushing someone around. He's punching someone. He's grabbing someone's face mask. He's causing penalties. And every time he's not getting the football, he's mad. He's frustrated. He pouts on the bench. He yells at the coaches. He's crazy. He's unmanageable. He truly is an unmanageable player. If I was a coach on that team, I would have a really hard time managing him because it's like, what are we supposed to do? Because he gets his penalties, he punches people, and then when he doesn't get the football, he's just mad. It's really hard to manage George Pickens on the football field, I can imagine, as a head coach. So the Steelers sent him away, and now he's on the Cowboys. I feel like Jerry Jones just fell for the trap here of an emotional wide receiver who's going to be a problem on your team. I really don't think this is going to work. I have a hard time saying that I would target George Pickens in fantasy football. So I'm really worried about this one, guys. Now, next piece of breaking news. This isn't truly fantasy relevant, but for your kicker leagues out there that, still run kickers, Justin Tucker has been released by the Baltimore Ravens. The announcement was kind of, I don't want to touch too much on what happened, in the offseason, but this was not a football move. Like the Ravens announced it. There was a lot of stuff that Justin Tucker did that was not okay. And those were probably the primary reasons of his release. Then looking to Dallas Goedert, there was a lot of rumors this offseason, especially during the NFL draft season, that Dallas Goedert could be traded. There was a lot of trade rumors circling around Dallas Goedert. It didn't seem like the Eagles really wanted him there. It seemed like they were fine with him there, or they were letting him go. And it looks like Dallas Goedert is finalizing a deal with Philly. I don't have the details in front of me at the moment, but most reporters are showing that Dallas Goedert and the Philadelphia Eagles have reached an agreement or are finalizing an agreement on a contract, and he's going to stay in Philadelphia. This is great for his fantasy football value. Obviously, he's behind A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. That sucks. However, there's still room on this offense for another piece. You saw Dallas Goedert down the stretch in the playoffs becoming a really good fantasy asset. Yes, A.J. Brown, and there were some injuries there. But Dallas Goedert is a very talented tight end, and I think there's going to be enough opportunity for him to have some fantasy relevance here and there. I just feel like in a worse offense, in a different situation, you likely wouldn't see a nearly 30-year-old tight end spring up to a career year. I think this is the place you want Dallas Goedert to be. Now, that's it for the breaking news. We're going to jump in to my sleepers. I have 6 players that I really want to talk about here. I went positionless. I didn't want to. I do actually have at least one of every position, which is nice, but I didn't intend to do that. It was kind of just I just picked 6 players that I really like and went with it. The first player I want to talk about here is a running back, Jordan James. He went to the San Francisco 49ers out of Oregon on day 3. 259 opportunities in his final college season as a junior, 1,400 total yards from scrimmage. 26 of those opportunities were receptions. A few hundred of those yards were receiving yards. He's very smooth as a receiver out of the backfield. He can give you some screens, some dump-off passes. He's not somebody that's going to run in the slot and run some crazy fancy routes. He's not that level of athlete. He's not that level of receiver, but he can give you some really, really good dump-offs, and he's very smooth with those kind of receptions. So I love to see that. That gives him an overall build that you really, really like to see. He's big enough, he's physical enough, he's quick, he's got the good athleticism, he's got the receiving ability. He's overall just a really good built back. And I think that it's a perfect, ironically, they're the same first name, but Jordan Mason replacement. I think this is a perfect Jordan Mason replacement. I think they're very comparable as players. And you look at where he could be on this depth chart very soon. Isaac Guerendo, he's a very solid player. He's flashed a little bit here and there, but he hasn't stayed consistent with his health, and he hasn't been consistent on the football field either. And then you look at Christian McCaffrey; he's nearly a 30-year-old running back, and while there's optimism that he could be healthy this year and he could, come back and bounce back this year, I have optimism there, and I might be willing to take the risk in fantasy this year. There's still a lot of risk, and if he were to go down, if Isaac Grendo were to not shake up well, if he were to go down, Jordan James could quickly be the number one running back on this team, and as a result, have immense fantasy value. And he's going in the 4th round of rookie drafts, so just keep an eye on him right now. Now, looking at Terrence Ferguson, tight end for the LA Rams. He's decent enough athlete, all around very solid tight end. He's more profiles as a receiver than a blocker, which is nice. I bet that when he goes to LA, he's likely going to get a lot of slot snaps. He's going to be in that range of the field. And then you have Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams primarily sticking to the outside, working the slot a little bit, obviously. They're both very versatile receivers, but both of them stick on the outside. You Terrence Ferguson in the slot eventually as he develops into the league. And while, you have Devontae Adams, you have Puka Nacua, you have Jordan Whittington there, that sucks. That's going to hurt your target share. Devontae Adams is very old, and we don't know if Jordan Whittington is seriously that great of a player. I have optimism for him, but he's an undrafted free agent who had 20 plus, just over 20 catches last year. Like, we don't know what he's going to be. So it's easy to see a path where Terrence Ferguson becomes the number 2 option on this team in a Matthew Stafford offense in the last couple of years of Matthew Stafford's career as an NFL quarterback. So keep an eye on Terrence Ferguson. He could become very relevant very, very quickly, and he's going in like the 3rd/4th round of rookie drafts. Now, my next player here is going to be a running back. I'm looking at Dallas Cowboys running back Jaden Blue out of Texas. Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams were really uninspiring ads in the offseason for the Dallas Cowboys, especially considering the season they had last year. You look last year, it was Rico Dowdle who shined at the end of the season, but other than that, it was truly a terrible season for the running back position for the Dallas Cowboys. And it was truly shocking throughout the offseason how there were so many running backs available, and then throughout the draft, the Dallas Cowboys didn't touch the running back position at all. They brought back Zeke, they brought in Dalvin Cook, and they had Rico Dowdle, they had Deuce Vaughn, they had Malik Davis, and everyone was just so confused, like, what the heck happened? And then coming into this offseason, everyone's like, oh, they got rid of Rico Dowdle, Zeke's gone, they're obviously going to add a running back. And then they bring in Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams, 2 really, again, uninspiring ads. People were like, okay, come on, they're going to draft somebody. Day 1 goes by, nobody. Day 2 goes by, nobody. And now we're in day 3, and they pick Jaden Blue with a late pick in the NFL draft. I do think this is an inspiring ad. Even though it is a late pick, even though the late round running backs usually don't hit, this does have some potential here. He's got sub 4.4 speed that translates on the NFL field. He makes strong, aggressive cuts in the open field. He can bulldoze you at 6 foot 200 pounds, but he's also explosive and can take a lot of runs to the house. There are plenty of runs where he just screams to the outside and bolts down the field. Love to see that kind of long speed. He's going to be able to take, 40, 50 yard runs to the house. And while I don't believe, day 3, like I said, day 3 running backs don't really hit very often, this is just such an empty depth chart that it will be so easy for Jaden Blue to move up if he really, really wanted to, if he really had the talent. And I think he is a decently talented back, and he could be, the Rico Dowdle for Dallas last year. Then my next player I really want to talk about here is Kyle Williams, wide receiver of the New England Patriots. I thought of him as a really interesting sleeper heading into the NFL draft season. His top speed, just, man, it's so fun. He's like flying down the football field. It just looks like he's very smoothly, nicely gliding down the football field. He really quickly gets the top speed. He's got great cuts in the open fields. He's got great route running ability. His routes are perfect. He's always creating separation. He's always making moves. And looking at his ability with the football in his hands, among wide receivers with 50-plus targets, top 5 in yards after catch per reception, he can take jet sweeps. He can take screen passes to the house. He can work in the slot. He can work out wide. He's a great explosive piece to add to a serviceable veteran like Stephon Diggs. And the Patriots added Kyle Williams after Travion Henderson, and it really just encapsulated their theme of the draft, which is get some explosive weapons for Drake May. Not only do they surround him with offensive line talent like Will Campbell at 4th overall, but in the 2nd and the 4th round, they've gotten these guys in Kyle Williams and Travion Henderson that Drake May can just loft the football to, and then all of a sudden just watch these players cook. Kyle Williams is going to be a monster yards after catch. Travion Henderson, we know what he can do with the football in his hands. Drake May is going to be a lot more comfortable than he was last year. Last year, Drake May was forced to throw to players that some more casual football fans might not even know. Like, it was terrible. He was truly forcing himself to throw some really illegitimate wide receivers, and now you have some receiving options that could take the football in their hands and make some humongous plays. It's going to be very good for Drake May to have those players, and as well as a serviceable option who's a good veteran, who's a smart veteran, and Stephon Diggs. It's going to be a great receiving room, honestly. I think it's underrated heading into this year. And I think that Kyle Williams, at worst, is the number 2 receiver on this offense. But if Stephon Diggs is not that good, if the ACL re-injures itself, if, he really starts to break down at his, 30-plus-year-old age, we could see Kyle Williams quickly step up into the number 1 wide receiver role in this offense. And at that point, you're looking at a fantasy gold mine in the third round of your rookie drafts. Now, last 2 players. Number 1 is Ja'Cory Brooks, wide receiver out of Washington. He went to the Commanders as an undrafted free agent. I talked about this guy as a sleeper on the pre-draft show, and while he did go as an undrafted free agent, which was slightly disappointing, I think the Washington Commanders offense in this situation is intriguing for fantasy football. They brought in Deebo Samuel, obviously, but they didn't really bring in many other receiving threats. And if Deebo Samuel's washed like he displayed last year, Ja'Cory Brooks has a very clear path to working his way to the number 2 spot in this offense. I don't want to get too lofty because he's an undrafted free agent and you can't have many expectations for them. He might not even be on the roster, heading into 2025 season. However, I think he's a very good football player. I think he has plenty of talent. And I think the opportunity on this not so crowded depth chart is huge. And I think he could be a good player. So keep an eye on Ja'Cory Brooks for the Washington Commanders. He's not somebody that you're going to add in the third round of your rookie drafts. I would not suggest that. He's someone that if you have room, he's an undrafted free agent after a rookie draft to throw on your bench. Or if you have the 5th round rookie drafts, go ahead and select him in the 5th round. I think it's worth the spot. Now, looking finally, my last player, we're going to the quarterback position. Will Howard, man. I thought he was intriguing coming out of college. Obviously he has some monstrous weapons at Ohio State, but he did well with them. He looks like a very serviceable pocket passer. He's really solid at reading the field. He's had a lot of games experience. And I think he could develop into a solid NFL player. And also, you have the opportunity here in Pittsburgh where they don't have a starting quarterback currently. Kirk Cousins is still out there and Rodgers is still out there, and both of them could be a Steeler. But for now, it's Mason Rudolph as his only competition. Like, Will Howard could be starting right away. It's a similar argument to Tyler Shuck in a sense where you're not really fully confident in the prospect, but the depth chart shows that this guy might be a starter right away. And in a super flex draft, that has a lot of value really quickly. And if he has a couple good games or has a couple good throws, his value is going to quickly skyrocket. So keep a really close eye on Will Howard in your rookie drafts. He's usually going in the 4th round. I think that's definitely worth the pick, especially if you want a quarterback to stash. He is one of those guys in the 4th or 5th round in rookie drafts that you can absolutely grab onto. But that's going to be all for Hutch Coming in Clutch today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I greatly, greatly appreciate you. Please follow me on Twitter at HutchsonB_FF. Check me out on Blue Sky over there as well. I post on both apps. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening or watching so you'll be notified every single time a new episode does drop. So next week, we're going to be talking about veterans, as rookie camp starts to begin, as, players are starting to roll in, as everything starts to settle down, after the NFL draft is fully complete. We're going to talk about some veteran winners and losers and some dynasty buys or sells as a result of the NFL draft. We're specifically going to focus on veterans. We focused a lot on rookies over the last 2 episodes. Now we're going to talk about some veteran players that we need to talk about after the NFL draft. So it's going to be a fun show. Probably will be longer than this one. So we'll see you next week. Get ready for a fun episode.